Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 13 of Germanator Gardens. And if any of you have a good enough memory, it's been 11 months since the last episode. Uh, None of what you're seeing was there before. So I actually recorded a couple segments. I don't remember if I mentioned this in past episodes because it's been so long. Of course, in the last one we built this behind the scenes area and the water tower, which I love. But anyway, I was going to build a western section to the park over here, which is, you know, I like building western areas, but for whatever reason, I just could not find the inspiration to really figure out how to lay this out and just get it in the way I wanted it. And I always like to build a GCI style wooden coaster in my western areas, which let's go ahead and ride this really quick, just because guess what? If you haven't figured it out, I'm planning to get rid of this. So I just was having a lot of trouble finding the inspiration for a western area, especially for this coaster. I think I built and rebuilt this coaster like somewhere between 3 and 5 times and continued revising it, and I just could not come up with a way of doing it that I quite liked. I think this was probably the best version, but it was just something about the space within the park just wasn't working for me. And so that's not the reason per se that I didn't keep working on this park. I spent last summer working at Cedar Point, and I have a full-time job now at a manufacturing company. So it's I'm just very busy. You can see that this is a very intense wooden coaster. I mean, it's not bad, but I just don't love how it sits within the park. So I had a couple other ideas with what I could do in this section. One of the ideas I had from the very beginning, and here in a moment, let's actually jump over to another park that I've created. So this is a park I made all the way back in 2019 when I was in college, called Oakmont Park. I actually have one video up on YouTube of a tour of a half-completed Oakmont Park, and it's a smaller regional style park. This one was a lot of fun to build. Look, you can see the airplane there. But why are we here? Well, I had an attraction in this park. Let's just go over to it. What did I call it? Launch coaster action. Very much inspired by Backlot Stunt Coaster. So when I started Germanator Gardens, I kind of had the idea of like, what if I put this coaster or a different version of it in Germanator Gardens? I think it would be the perfect kind of coaster for that, mid-sized regional theme park. And look, you can even see it. I mean, it's a pretty big rip-off, this little scene up here before going into the building. And, I am very proud of this ride, even to this day. This is one of my favorites that I've created. Anyway, so I thought, well, what if we put that in there? Well, I had another idea for Germanator Gardens, and that was, a dinosaur-themed area, maybe building another mountain in that section of the park, doing something similar to what we had in Germanator Studios. And then I thought, well, what if I took this ride, I mean, not this layout exactly, but built something similar, like a launched family, fast-paced roller coaster, and made it dinosaur themed and kind of worked that into the area. So why not combine both ideas into something, and I think giving myself a little more creative freedom in that regard, not being bound to just one very specific theme, like Western. Granted, dinosaurs is still a specific theme, but I think there's, I'm getting more inspiration as time goes on to work on Germanator Gardens, and I think, that could be a decent idea. And I don't want to spoil anything, but, down to like where the ride does this turn up into a cut scene, maybe we could have a T-Rex or something, and then you go into a cave or something like that. So I have some ideas that would exercise my creativity, get the juices flowing, and be a little more, I don't want to say cutting edge, because Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 is very old, but some ideas that would be kind of innovative, I guess. So let's go back over to Germanator Gardens and get an idea of what we want to do. Alrighty, so we're back here in Germanator Gardens, and let's start by saying goodbye to our GCI roller coaster here. And you know, it kind of sucks when you've spent time working on something to just get rid of it. I even started a train layout, which I do want to incorporate a train into this section of the park, but yeah, I have some more ideas for that down the line. But you know, sometimes something just doesn't work for the park, and if it doesn't work for the park, sometimes you just have to, you know, start from scratch. It's like taking one step back, but we're going to take 2 steps forward, and what we'll have in the end should be better. So let's start the way we like to start projects around here, and let's get our terrain painter out. Let's just get rid of all this for now. Another suggestion I had gotten, you know, I think at the start of this series or at the end of the last series, was, oh, what can I do with terrain, and kind of changing the elevation within the park. So that's the thing I want to do here, is kind of create a short little plateau that this section of the park will be housed on. Now the only downside to that is I don't want the mountain we build back here. It's not going to be huge, but I don't want it to be visible from the main entrance, because I want, you know, the castle here and this Plunder Mountain to be the main focal point. But eventually I do want to incorporate a Western themed area, and I think that would go well here with the log ride. So maybe this back midway could be Western themed. And if we build a mountain, you know, you'd have a midway, and the mountain could be a focal point from the midway. Well, how would a dinosaur themed mountain be a focal point for a Western area? Well, we could do red rocks, and you know, like those kind of canyons, I think, are a stereotypical imagery from, you know, the dinosaur eras or whatever. So I think we could do a red colored mountain. I mean, similar to this, but maybe a little more canyon-like, and less just singular mountain, something like that. I think we have options. So the first thing I want to do is just lay out our perimeter road, because I want to continue to have this, if we can, around the backside of the park. So that'll set a boundary for us, for where we build. I'll just come all the way back here. And one thing too I realized is there's a lot of space back here to build stuff, which is good. We have more than I realized we did. I kind of built this parking lot and this coaster and this mountain, you know, all sandwiched up at the front of the park, and we even have our greenhouses in here, our gardens, I mean. That's the namesake of the park. So I have all that, but there's still quite a bit of room back here for what it's worth. I mean, for building, you know, a Western area and this and that, and I think we'll even have some room for behind the scenes stuff. But that is to be discussed down the line, I suppose. And I just want to make this, I want to put a barrier here on the inside. So I want to give us some wiggle room for terrain work. And I don't want this section really to come much past, let's say, this lift hill of the log flume. So let's get another color here. And along this line, let's just make a soft boundary in this direction. And the next thing I want to do is roughly get an idea of where we want to build our mountain. So let's get this path under color. And let's get an idea of where our Western midway would be. So I want to have at least 4 blocks, 4 tiles open from the midway, or from the edge of this water, just for any rides or buildings we want to put here. So I don't want that midway. Well, it could go right up against the water, but I think we want room for buildings in the midway. So let's say we'll have 3 wide for paths. Then let's give ourselves at least 4 tiles for buildings. And then we'll do a front barrier, 2, 3. So this would be our rough midway line. Hopefully that makes sense. And the grass strip in the middle is basically going to be our median, where we would put our planters. in the middle of the midway. I don't know that we would want to do that for a western midway, because probably just end up being like a big dirt road. But nevertheless, that's our standard design that I use for midways. And do I even have? I don't even have planters in there yet. Oh well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. So now we have a line for our midway. Let's just make our tiles a little wider. So, in fact, let's do this. Let's get our bricks again. And we'll go 1. So this is going to be, up in this area. Somewhere in this area is where I want the peak of the mountain to be. So that way it will be a focal point when you're looking down this midway. And I think, the dinosaur area midway is going to be over in this section. Then we'll have our mountain up here and a roller coaster that kind of wraps around it. But I also want to have a dark ride. And I think we can use this back corner of the park to do that. So I want the coaster to go around this mountain and maybe even into the show building for the dark ride, at least for a portion. But I want to have something similar to what we did in Germanator Studios, where it's like you're on this tour buggy. And we may even do that outdoors. That may not be an indoor thing, but I want to find a way to draw from that dark ride we made in Germanator Studios, but then also make it more original and kind of build off of what we had. So next thing I want to do here is just, I don't want to assume I'm going to make a 90-degree corner here, but I might. So now we have some general ideas for how we're going to build things. And the mountain, the peak of it, I want it to appear distant. We want to use some forced perspective. So we know we have this boundary here to work with, so we can start doing some terrain work around here. Let's, real quick, I don't want grid lines. I want height markers. Let's grab our inclination tool, and I want to come in 1, 2, 3. So I want to do a 5x5 base for our mountain. Let's just draw that on the ground here. So we're coming in 1, 2. And the reason I'm doing that is, it's a dinosaur world, so we have to do a volcano. And I'm going to go about that pretty much the same way I did it in Germanator Studios. But let's grab our terrain tool. Let's get a 5x5 square. Let's bring this up 1. And we're going to do a 1/3, 2/3 here. So we'll bring this up 2 more lines. Maybe. That's actually probably not going to be tall enough. We could even do, let's go for 7x7. So, and I'm not going to bother with painting that, but 7, this will be our new center. Then we'll go to 5. This will come up 2. And then we're going to make it sort of, yeah. So it has a sweeping edge to it. And of course, we'll roughen it up and everything. But then what we'll do is, let's find our zipper tool. Look at that. Now, of course, it's not just going to be this pyramid-like shape. We're going to, like I said, roughen it up. And we can even make this bigger. So, work a little quicker there. And that gives us a rough shape for our mountain. We'll just check it out on all sides. And I realized that, I messed up the border of our road here a little bit. We can fix that, though. Let's go back to our big tool. Let's go 3x3. Just bring that up. And like I've said before, terrain can be finicky. And then the one thing I just remembered again is we want to elevate this section of the park on sort of a plateau. So that mountain may even need to come up one further. But let's stick with, we could do 5 by 5, which is weird that that's on the setting 6 and that's a 5 by 5. Let's go for 10 by 10 though. And we'll want to leave, I want to leave at least one flat tile around here. And then, so we'll come in 2 on either side. And we'll just bring this up 1 tile length. And, you know, before we do any of that, I think I want to make this, I want to fix this. So we're flattening our mountain again, starting from scratch. So let's see, that's our 7 by 7. So this would be flat. So 1, 2, wait, that's weird. I see, okay. 5 by 5, up 2. And I don't know why that number's off. I probably just have to reset it or something. Look at that though. So that'll make a good mountain shape. And I realized too, like I think I have to do this manually, going in here and adjusting these edges because I want this to be steep. I want the profile to look like this. So I'm going to do that manually. I'll probably do that off camera a little bit. Yeah. Let me think here though. And I'm realizing too, so we still have to go back. You know, sometimes you got to refine. So I realized this is actually the ground level of this area of the park. It's very important too, and I've talked about this before. I lost my train of thought, sorry. Okay. So I've talked about this before, but it's important that you use these tools that kind of snap the scenery or the terrain to the heights you want it to, just to ensure that everything works for the pathing system. Otherwise, you can give yourself a big headache down the line when you're working with paths. All right, but let's go back to a 10 by 10. Yeah, you'll notice I clicked out of this and clicked back. So now everything lines up. And we have our plateau. And, you know, we're just going to do a rough shape for this plateau. So we'll even have to get rid of this path eventually. Somewhere along here will be kind of a ramp up to it. You know, normally I don't do this in my parks either. But I'm just doing it to show you how you can go about creating, you know, different tiers with your terrain. And I'll just show you real quick too with the pathing system. So if you do your ramps like this, a level ramp, this, and it doesn't even come up all the way here, but let's see. I'll have to come back a little bit. So 4 of these shallow ramps is basically 1 line of height, and then 2 stairs. It's the same, oops. It's the same thing. So the reason you want to go with these, you know, lines, and you can do half a line too, but that's what's going to line you up with the terrain, or with the path ramp system. So, but we're kind of going from scratch here, so I'm not going to worry too much about this. Let's actually go ahead and get rid of this path because I want to use this whole space. I don't want part of this section to be elevated and part of it not to be. And let's start thinking about an entrance to this space. So I think I want to do sort of a plaza in this area. So how much space do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's do a 5 by 5 plaza. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5. And we could put a restaurant in over here and kind of just have this space act as a breather between this main midway and the dinosaur area of the park. which I don't have a name for yet. I had some ideas in my mind, but I am curious to hear what you guys think we should call it. So I will let you guys kind of come up with that, or list your ideas in the comments below. Alrighty. One thing I want to check really quick. Actually, I'm going to fix this terrain over here. And I think I'm going to have to adjust this volcano again because now that we're elevated, I think I'm going to have to move it one. But I want to check the height of this, what will be a volcano, to make sure it looks fine from the front of the park. So let's come into our free cam mode here. Free look. Coming through our main entrance. Ooh. And we'll look around here and look, I cannot even see that terrain. So that's exactly what we want. Let's just come around here until we can see it. Yeah, so you can't see it until you get to the other side of this mountain, which is perfect. What would it take to be able to see it? I don't know that we will. Yeah, so it looks to be exactly the same height as Plunder Mountain, but it's so far back that you won't be able to see it when you're in these front couple midways. So until you get around the other side of Plunder Mountain, you won't be able to see the volcano. So I think that'll work perfectly. And you know, the volcano is going to be the centerpiece of our dinosaur-themed area. But yeah, let's see, normal camera. So I think what I want to do is somewhere back here we'll have a flat ride with a show building, and you'll probably enter in through like a building that then has a hidden path under the ground, and blah blah blah. And then somewhere, you know, maybe we leave. You know, this is the part of the video where I think out loud. You know, I want to figure out a way to incorporate that launched family coaster as well. I want it to be able to wrap around, you know, the mountain. Maybe we do more terrain work than just the volcano, so the volcano can stand on its own. Yeah, maybe it'll wrap around here, around the show building or something. I don't really know yet, but this is a start. This gives us an idea of how we want to go about stuff. And I also, so I had a train that you saw at the beginning of the video. So I still want to put in a train. The idea for this park is I don't want it to be like you're going back in time. I kind of want it to be like the past is being brought to the present. So I don't want to, you know, shy away from having a train going through here or other things. You know, I kind of want it to be a little bit quirky and have its own character that, you know, something like a Jurassic Park wouldn't have, or not that it wouldn't have it, but, you know, I want to make it stand apart. So I do want to have the train kind of wrap around the base of this mountain, maybe even slightly more elevated so it can be seen from this section of the park. And, you know, just make it look a little bit cheesy. You know, like what a theme park might look like in a cartoon. But yeah, so I think I'm going to leave this clip here and kind of sit on what I've done. Actually, what I want to do real quick, just so I don't leave you guys hanging, is I'm going to quickly finish this volcano because I do have kind of an idea of what I want to do here. So maybe we'll jump into a quick little time lapse. All right, everyone. So we're back. We just shaped up this volcano, and now we're gonna do the artistic thing. So first thing I want to do is bring this backside or the very top down a little bit. Now we're not really gonna put anything special in here. We might put some fireworks in there, firework launchers. That's why I dip it down a little bit. Actually, I think I just want to bring it down one. Should be sufficient. And what we can do now is, we don't want the top to be completely flat, so we'll go, up, if we can. Oh, and I used the wrong tool there. So if you ever use the wrong tool, that fine adjustment, just come and grab your increment tool, and that'll snap it back to the default heights. And we'll bring this up. Let's see here. Actually, I think I want to leave this one at the same height, because if you look at a volcano, they usually, if we can get that, point up on the edges. So we'll go up 1, 2, we'll do 1. We'll leave this one at its default height, but we'll bring this corner up. And we will bring this corner up. And I don't want this to be completely even either, so we'll bring that one up too. Actually, I want to do 1 here. And then we'll bring this corner up a second one. There's a subtle reason for this, and it may just be that I, as the artist, have decided that this is the way I want to represent the volcano. I don't know. But what I think having the left one being taller will do. So if we come back, there, I got that. If we come back to the front of the park, you may remember from back at the beginning, and I'm going to go into free look here again. It's all about the sight lines and how the eye is drawn into things. So if we come back to our carousel here, you may remember from back in the day, we made this tower a little shorter than this tower, and our carousel, if we view it at the right angle, sits nicely in the middle. But then the mountain is the tallest thing in this image. Oops. Where are we? The free look camera is a little buggy with a trackpad. On the left here we have a gift shop kind of framing the left side, and we also have the gift shop and the mountain together framing this roller coaster. Goodness, I hate free look. And eventually we'll have another building or something here to kind of fill in the left side. But this whole sight line, everything has its place, and this carousel is not obstructing anything on the horizon. I mean, you can't see these archways. It is obstructing those, but it has its own place in the sky between these two towers. So what is the point I'm trying to get at? Well, let's come on down here. And looking at this mountain from this intended angle, you'll see again, it's uneven at the top. I made the left side a little bit taller because, it's kind of acting as, a barrier or a boundary for the park. And so the added height, it gives a little more weight in this direction. You also, and maybe this is psychological or maybe it's just me, but you have the whole park over here to the right, or you will eventually. And I want this to, kind of act as a left boundary where the park is the right boundary. And this subtle curve, it's, the motion is, top to bottom. So here's the top of the mountain, then you're coming down. Again, there's that nice curvature of the different tiers, and then eventually it'll settle out into the rest of the park. So that's why it's a subtle change, but I think the mountain will look better and fit in better if it's curved like that. And these are the tiny little things I think about. These are not by any means necessary. It's just a roller coaster tycoon park, but these are the creative decisions we like to make. So next thing we can do is let's come over here, and just for the heck of it, so we can see the topography a little better. Let's get something to contrast our gray color. Let's make a little checkerboard here. That way we can see. We could even do this with grid lines. But we're gonna want the checkerboard. Well, yeah. Let's do grids instead. So give me just a moment. Now, this is something I don't normally do, but when you're working with terrain, and if you want to help visualize it, if we turn on these grid lines, that'll help kind of show the curvature too, before we paint it especially. Now let's go to our terrain tools, and we just want the singular tile. Let's we don't need the zipper, we want the smooth to start. And we're just going to come along to these different corners and just do a little bit of work, just a couple light clicks here and there. So we're going to make this mountain, this volcano, a little less jagged. Just come all the way around. We'll do it along the bottom too, get at the corners especially. And this is kind of step one. In fact, we can just hold it down on each of the corners. I think that'll smooth it out the way we want it. Maybe. But we'll just go little by little around here. It's important we avoid getting any of these top edges though. And this will kind of average everything out. And we'll just go one point of the grid at a time. And I realize it's going to be a little different on the left here because this is taller, so. That's basically as good as we need it to be. And this will only adjust the height of that middle corner too. If you grab it like a 2x2. Okay, so this in and of itself is enough, but this volcano is still very conical, very cylindrical. So let's come over here, and we could use create ridge, hill, or mountain. I think I want to go with hill. On the 2x2s, it's not going to make much of a difference, but this will go a little slower and be a little less aggressive. And let's bring a point up here. And what we're doing now is just adding some jaggedness to the volcano so it doesn't just look, like so smooth, because we're talking about nature here. There are no straight lines in nature. There are no perfect curves in nature other than, maybe the golden ratio spiral. I guess that's maybe the closest thing we have to a perfect curve in nature, but nevertheless. And we'll just come in here and roughen things up a little bit. There may even be... no, I'm thinking of... Planet Coaster has a roughen tool. This one does not. But that is okay. And we'll just come through here. And again, we can see our grid lines here to get an idea of how the shape is looking. And let's even look along the edge here. So we still don't want it to be too smooth or too jagged. It can be too smooth, but it can also be too straight. All right, and let's come back in here with our smooth tool again, and we're just gonna use that to average some things out. It's a very back and forth, very subtle movements along here. Yeah, I don't want there to be any too aggressive points. And I think where we are at now is about what we want. So this looks pretty good on either end. I want to bring that down a little bit, and then right there. I think that works. I don't want it to have like a lump sticking out of the side of it. Yeah, that's all I need to say. Okay, let's turn off You can tell it's been a while since I've played this too, because I'm having trouble finding stuff in the menu here. So now we have our big concrete pile, but we want to make this look like a volcano. So let's grab our terrain paint. And again, I mentioned earlier I want this to be kind of red rocks, but I want to try something out. I want to start with this dark colored rock along the top. Because it's a volcano, I think the top is kind of going to be scorched. So let's do that, and let's try this other rock texture along here. So it's going to be darker towards the top. With the other one, we did a snow-capped peak, right? And we used, we were very particular about the colors to create sort of a blue shifted mountain to make it feel further away from us. And that works in the context of, we want the focal point to be the castle here. You want the mountain to feel like it's far behind the castle. So, but here we want to feel kind of close to the volcano. I want it to have a intimidating presence. So I'm not worried about doing that so much. But we're starting up here with these colors to make it feel charred. Now let's come in with some of our red rock textures around this second tier. Let's do this. Actually, this was unintentional, but I'm grabbing the corners here with this crumbled rock. The red and the gray rock textures here, these are very similar textures in the way they look kind of crumbly. So I don't want to put those next to each other. I want to mix in the smooth, so that works well. I'm lining those two up at the corners is what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to say. Let's come in with our smooth texture. And I think we'll do even more rock textures. Like, we'll do a rocky ridge along this side, maybe not, but we can, to further make us feel like we're in a canyon. But I will worry about that later. Let's finally come along with our cracked mud along the base here. And, the benefit of painting this whole thing concrete is that's a square texture, so you can really get a good idea of what you're doing when you're painting in and combining textures. And we'll do our smooth red rock texture. But now we have our grass texture leading up into the mountain from the bottom, which I do not want right now. Eventually we'll come up with a way that we want to paint the ground in here, and it'll be likely cracked mud, but for now let's just set a border with this. The one disadvantage here is you can see those lines, so maybe I'll paint this first and then we'll line it with the cracked mud texture. Alright. We could even do the normal mud. Yeah, let's do that. And look, now we're just blending right in there. And that's a much more seamless transition into the ground. And we're blending textures and colors. And yeah, you can see it just is a lot more organic that way. And I like that the red, it really does feel like the red continues all the way up, but then this is not a darker rock, it just does feel charred, which I think works in the context of a volcano. Let's go ahead and see how this looks from the ground. Go back into free look. Now, this is very rudimentary at the moment. I don't want to go too much further in this episode. I think I want to leave it here and see what we think. But look at that. I think that's a pretty good volcano. And I think when we do a western area over here, which I think this is going to be a much better spot for the western area. We have more room to do what I want to do. So I don't even really think that looks like it. In the context of the prehistoric area, that'll look exactly like a volcano. But in the context of the western area, I think we can do some work to really make this just feel like another mountain or a rock formation. So I think that's going to work out. You know, this is not explicitly a volcano. Maybe we can even change the top of the volcano on this side so it comes up a little more to a point and less of a flat top. And then we can make it so from these angles it looks more like, because look at this angle, like right along here, that's just a mountain, that's not a volcano. So I mean, we could even, you know, change which ends point up, because, you know, our prehistoric area is going to be on this little plateau. So I think that's going to do it for this episode. You know, we're getting back into things. I don't want to give you too much. You know, no guarantees that this is going to be a regular thing I do. It's you know, I still have a full-time job and I have very limited free time at the moment. And I, you know, just to be completely honest, I don't always want to spend that making videos. I just had a streak of inspiration recently. You know, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've like kind of figured out what direction I want to take this section of the park. So I wanted to roll with that. And while I was recording too, I had an idea. Maybe instead of a dark ride, maybe back here we'll do sort of a fake canyon with like a crater in the ground. And maybe our roller coaster will take place, you know, in this crater. And then around the top edge of the crater, we could have like that truck ride, that truck flat ride, and do something along those lines. You know, and the truck will stop and look at different dinosaurs, and the coaster will be more coaster-like with, you know, and then maybe it'll come up over here, and you'll see your T-Rex, and then you'll go into a dark area. I don't know exactly how I want to go about that, but, you know, things to think about. It's a start, and look at how much empty space we have to work with. So, you know, now we're not limited, because there's not going to be a lot of buildings here to begin with. I think we'll do some, because like I said, I want it to be sort of modern prehistoric, and not like going back in time prehistoric. So, yeah, but that's neither here nor there. Well, it is there, it's not here. But I think that's going to do it. Let's just hit play and watch our park go. And I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.